If you're doing a lot of those, then back off on the main ones you're using.
The main pillar we want to talk about is what can we help to improve it better and faster and help. We're not anti medicine at all, but what's the missing piece that the current prescription is missing?
You'd be better off getting some straight Lactobacillus rhamnosus GG or something. And
So if your child's eczema just keeps coming back after the steroid cream, it's never meant to fix the problem from the beginning. And this is what this podcast is going to be about, getting to the root cause. Now, I've got a guest, Brad, with us, and between us, we've got 30 years plus experience, and we've got 4 children between us. So the babies whose eczema clears for good, they've got one thing in common. They look at the holistic, multiple angle approach, and this is what we're going to talk about today. So how are you going, Brad? Hi.
yeah, great. It's great to get into this subject. It's
Excellent.
a very common thing we treat, eczema.
Yeah, so why does it keep coming back? That's the first topic. So the viewers there, they might be watching, they've tried the eczema cream, the steroid cream, they put it on, it goes for a little while, but then as soon as they stop, it comes back. So why does it keep coming back?
Yeah, well, this is a very important subject because it refers to a lot of the time. In the old naturopathic speak, we used to talk about the steroid creams kind of suppressing it, be pushing the whatever's going on to somewhere else. Like in the case of eczema, it might be encouraging more asthma. And sometimes when we treat the skin, well, then the underlying immune activity hasn't been dealt with, and inevitably pops up somewhere else. While steroid creams might be a necessary step for individuals if they have to, put something on to get out the house and
Mm-hmm.
just to survive, you really want to avoid them long term. You should treat them like an acute prescription that you only use,
Yeah,
when
so
necessary.
the baby's skin's still developing. It's still young. It's still, the immune system's developing. That's part of it. There's
Hmm.
also the gut, which I always mention in other videos too. And that's what we need to support. So as Brad said, of course, steroid creams have a time to be used if your child is not sleeping and scratching and in a lot of distress, then for sure. But the main pillar we want to talk about is what can we help to improve it better and faster and help. We're not anti medicine at all, but what's the missing piece that the current prescription is missing? Yeah, so naturopathic, Brad touched on naturopathic foundation, and this is a big part of overcoming the baby's eczema and developing into a healthy toddler and child beyond without any eczema. So the belief we want to change here is that the eczema cream, the steroid cream, it has its place, but there can be a lot more that you can do. And there's real research. I'm just looking off here. We're going to put some research in the description backing all of this up. But there was a study, Danby and Cork, 2025, quite recent, that showed for skincare in babies, treating the inside and out compared to steroids had clinical significance. It really does work. And that's what we're going to cover more on. So the next part we want to address is the breastfeeding mother. So you may be breastfeeding your mother now. You're wondering what can you possibly do through the mother. Do you want to talk a little bit to begin,
Yep.
Brad, about that?
Yeah, I like how you said you may be breastfeeding your mother right now, or you must be.
Breast-
It's instead of you are a breastfeeding mother. Yeah, look, it's a very important subject, and as naturopathic clinicians, you'll ask one of the first questions you will ask a mother is if they're bringing their children in, is the baby, in this case, the baby being breastfed or not. And it's just, there's no disputing that breast milk is the superior nutrient source for a child, and including the nutrients you get. You're also looking at the bacteria and everything, which will also and immunoglobulins and all this that comes from the mother as well. That is, really important too for their overall health and managing something like eczema.
But at this point, we're saying also if you're watching and you're not breastfeeding, there are many situations where that's not possible. That's okay as well. We'll give solutions to that as well. But just the importance of breastfeeding can be very protective. But you may, in saying that, be breastfeeding your baby and still they've got eczema. The research is showing that there, because food proteins come through and this affects inflammation in the mother as well, but particularly the science here, Allen Clinical Experimental Allergies in 2022, they showed the milk protein, specifically dairy, is reacting with the child. So what happens is they tried it for the mother to stop drinking milk, and the eczema got better, and then they brought that milk back in and the baby got the eczema again. So there's a clear link, and that's only cow's milk. Can you think of some other things, Brad?
Sometimes, we see this in breastfeeding a lot as well when the mother is consuming lots of eggs or lots of nuts or lots of soy. That can then if the baby is highly reactive, then that can come through the breast milk as well. Even though most of the time we're encouraging breastfeeding, that still these allergens can come through.
Yes.
And also how the mother is reacting to the foods and things in her environment too.
Yes.
Then if their immune system is affected, the mother's immune system becomes affected, or becomes highly allergenic,
Yes.
or in that imbalance of T helper cells or what have you, then that can then affect the baby as well. So yeah.
The signals are all coming through the breast milk, and then the baby is reacting to the mother's food. My wife had particularly chili and garlic, and so we removed that for our son. It was quite clear, but it takes a little bit of detective work of working out what it could be. But as Brad said, there could be lots of things like nuts as well, and
Yeah,
all
and
sorts
look
of
on
vegetables.
that too. There's obvious ones like people, will think of the nuts and soy will come up, but really, when you're in clinical practice, there's lots of weird and wonderful things that people will react to,
Mm.
and it's really a case by case thing. And like you said, you've got to do the detective work and figure these things out. And that's why working with a practitioner is really good, because we've got the experience in knowing, well, hang on, we've had a few cases where this spice has put something off, or a certain herb which should, most 99% of people are fine with, but we do see that they might be reacting to something like chamomile or something like that.
Mm.
So when we do a dietary analysis of the mother, or we talk about the overall environment, we can often weed these things out and really get to the bottom of what's causing the issues.
Yeah, and there's often things that mothers wouldn't think, and then you just can see it straight away. Well, yep, that one there, and suggest to take it out, and it helps. You mentioned also about IgE reactions. Just quickly on that, Brad loves to talk about science, and he's very technical as well, so I'll simplify it. But the two reactions, there's the straight allergies of the IgE and the IgM, and they're more reactive, like the peanut touches the skin and then the skin flares up. But there's also the IgG and the IgA, and they're more to do with food sensitivities, and they're slow to react. So the study showing the milk, it said in the study, I think it was 6 to 48 hours after. So the reaction is a bit slower. It's not necessarily immediate with just one glass of milk from the mother. It's probably every day something that's repeating. So a lot of variety would help. But then we will go into the naturopathic foundation of not just steroid cream or not just removing one thing. You really want to fix the whole system, and it goes back to the gut. So for the baby and the mother, and through strengthening the gut and bringing down the inflammation, therefore it'll flow on. So the mother could potentially still have that food, and then the reaction is less because we've addressed the gut. Yeah, there was some research as well, particularly with the milk. It was a bit mixed. So there was a Cochrane review found with the hydrolyzed formula. That's where they break down the milk protein. So going into talking about if you're going to give your baby formula, there are low allergenic milks, the hydrolyzed, partially hydrolyzed milk proteins, but the research was a bit mixed, and it did show that it didn't necessarily make an improvement. So if you're experiencing this and you're thinking that it is better to keep the milk, potentially you've been told, for longer, or it's going to support the growth or the nutrition more than 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, it could potentially be more beneficial to stop that at the 6 month and then use other things, because the baby's already starting to get nutrients from foods and introduce new foods anyway. So classic bone broth and broths and meats and amino acids other ways. It doesn't have to necessarily be the formula. And yeah, the research really shows that it's not necessarily better, even though it's marketed as a better low allergenic thing. It's still reactive. And Brad touched on also about soy and goats as well. There is cross reactivity with those, so not necessarily it's going to be better. Although in my family, my mother had a goat for my son, for my brother, and it did work. But then we get into the topic of raw milk. That was a long time ago, and raw goat's milk is a lot different to then a formula of goat's milk, because it's been heavily processed and cooked and pasteurized and doesn't have the living things that the goat has. Yeah, have you had experience with raw milk at all, Brad?
No, it got. I know. I remember when it got banned, and it was kind of like a renegade thing to get it from some of the health shops at one point. Then,
Yes,
um,
the Cleopatra's
but
bath milk.
yeah, that's the one. Yeah. Yeah, look, I don't know. Look, certainly when something's got its living bacteria, that when it's raw state, it is better for you. However, it's usually the proteins in these milk products, the caseins and proteins, that can be problematic and cause the issue.
Yes.
So yeah, the raw milk won't help in that situation.
Yes, yeah, and depends on where you're watching this from. So some countries are stricter in banning raw milk. So why are they doing that? And a lot of countries and traditional cultures still use that, and it's
Yeah,
certainly
well,
good for
because
the
we don't know
cow.
how to look after ourselves, Shannon. We're going to poison ourselves if they don't pasteurize it for us.
Yeah, to kill
That's
all
a
that
joke, by the way.
harmful stuff. And
Yeah.
a mother might have mastitis, and they're still feeding their baby with technically bacteria in that milk, but that's okay. But raw milk. But in Australia, yeah, I think it's still sold in Perth as Cleopatra's bath milk. There are some
Okay.
people in the hills that sell it. A lot different, and a lot of
Of
people
course, if you've got your
swear
own
at
cows at home, I mean, you can obviously milk
it.
your own milk and
Yes, excellent. Lucky you. Yeah, so we'll get into the next bit about the mother system. So we talked about what's coming through the breast milk or the formula, and I briefly touched on healing the gut, but we've got to talk about starting with the mother. So what's going on with her? What could she do to help the baby? So because all that nutrients is coming through, and even her nervous system could be influencing the baby's eczema.
yeah, absolutely. Well, like going back to talking about reactive proteins, I mean, the casein proteins is that if the child's reacting to them and the mother's having dairy, and you throw in high sugar into this equation, because
Mm,
that's like the two big no-nos with eczema. And I know a lot of children, or even down to babies, can be exposed to a lot of sugar. And I think if the mother is, the mother might be doing their due diligence. They might be trying to feed the baby as best they can, but if they've got a high sugar diet themselves, and
yes.
and having poor forms of dairy too, and they may even be on low fat or something like that, where a lot of the beneficial vitamins, things like vitamin A and what have you, they might not be getting a lot of the good stuff coming through, and they might be having high sugar, and then
Yes.
that can be really detrimental. But like you said, anything inflammatory too. So if there's a diet high omega 6, or specifically arachidonic acids,
Yep.
and
Seed
again,
oils,
coupled with
canola.
coupled with high sugar. I don't know if you want to bring up the seed oil argument there, Shannon, but good luck to that one. But industrial seed oils, you know, there's plenty of evidence to say that they're problematic. And yeah, if the mother's diet isn't great,
Yeah,
then you've got to suspect that that can be transferring, or issues in that diet can be transferring into
definitely. Which
the
is
baby.
it's quite common because the mother is exhausted. They're
Mm,
waking up. The baby's waking up, feeding. They're not sleeping properly. Then they fall into a trap of just reaching for whatever they can, and it might be some a muffin, chocolate muffin, or a coffee in the afternoon, and they
coffee,
skip
yeah.
breakfast, and then they just fall into having the sugary things just to get them going enough. We won't talk about
Well,
preconception care, but the importance of that building up before birth, and then they give birth. They're so depleted, and the baby's
mm,
taken all their nutrients.
well,
Well,
just on
not
that
quite
note,
all.
just on that note of being depleted and going for the coffee, the chocolate, or what have you, it'd be a missed, or we wouldn't be doing our due diligence if we didn't talk about the whole histamine picture here, because that's a major component of eczema. So for
Mm,
people that don't know, histamine is released by the immune system and causes that itching sensation, causes the redness, and it's a big component of the eczema presentation. So, and if the baby's particularly reactive, and histamine's a problem, and so there's a whole list of foods. Now, there's good foods that are good foods, but they're high in histamine.
mm,
And it's not that doesn't mean we never have those foods. If histamine's a problem for us at any given time, it means that we might have to back off of those foods
mm,
when we're dealing with this. In the case of a mother with a baby with eczema, things like spinach, avocado, which are great foods,
mm-hmm,
and then the coffees and the chocolate and everything can all just ramp up histamine.
mm, mm,
And it's often I do this with my patients is, look, here's a low histamine diet guide.
mm-hmm,
And I say, just look at the guide and use it exactly like that as a guide. It don't have to use it as a strict dietary approach. Maybe in some cases you might push that, but usually I say, are you doing a lot of this list, which is the high histamine list? If you're doing a lot of those, then back off on the main ones you're
mm-hmm.
using. And so someone that could be avocados, it could be walnuts and cashews, it could be all of the above, then, and plus coupled with a lot of chocolate and all caffeine. And they're all good foods. We don't want them
Mm-hmm.
off those foods forever, but
Mm-hmm.
you may need to lower that histamine load, and that histamine coming through to the baby. And I think that's important too.
Mm.
And often I'll say, well, and I'll give always, if I'm giving a list of things that are problematic, I will always say, always give them a list of things that aren't. And you can do all this stuff. So I usually
Yes.
say, shift over all that list if you can, and add. And then anything you're doing high amounts of that could be raising histamine, then knock that down, bring it down and rotate it, what have you.
Because we are making our own histamine, but then we're also getting it in foods as well. So imagine like a scale, and if we've got a good functioning system, great gut, good immune system, we can tolerate it. But then in reactive people, the mothers could be adding to the baby. The baby's already with the eczema is over the threshold and their histamine is quite high. That's why antihistamines help with that. But what we're trying to do is just get it back into that normal range, and with taking out some foods which are high histamine can help with that. We don't
Yeah,
want to
and it's
cause too
important to
much
note.
stress.
Yeah, it's important to note that there is histamine in foods, but there's also foods that um, accentuate histamine, or either histamine release within the body, or they block the DAO enzyme, which breaks down histamine. So foods
It's
can
the whole
have,
system.
yeah,
It's
well,
not
there can be a
just black and white.
variety of foods that have different mechanisms to causing high histamine in the body. So, and that's where you've got to really rule out what's going on there, because you may not have too many high histamine foods, but you may have a lot of foods that once they're consumed, they contribute to blocking the DAO enzyme, or they impact the immune system in a way that histamine is released. And hormones, the same. Like high estrogen is often can coupled with high histamine as well. So hormones play a role there too. So yeah, it's a tricky one, histamine,
Yeah.
and I often see this not go down, not strategically managed well enough.
Yeah, I'll just touch on because we're talking about the mother and the calming the mother system too, and we've talked about inflammation in the mother. There were two studies I'm going to include in the notes. One looked at 145 mothers, 25 weeks of pregnancy. They brought in the high EPA DHA. That's the EPA is the anti-inflammatory action, and it did reduce the allergy linked to eczema in the babies. But then there was another one, Furugelm trial, and that found no benefit. So there was a bit of mixed information there. There are a lot more studies as well, and we do know that the EPA in the fish oil most definitely has a role in it, but it's not that simple. So there was mixed information there. I do usually with mothers recommend that they do bring that in because there's more benefits as well, and even for the developing baby and the baby's brain as well.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The DHA too, and there's debates whether EPA is the main anti-inflammatory one, and that's what you should be focusing on. But they're both EPA and DHA, you'll get some benefits, good
Yeah.
benefits from it, and reduction in inflammation.
Yeah, let's talk about now about the environment. So in the environment, environmental allergens, dust, dust mites, or chemicals, cleaning products, etc. That was one little
Yeah.
trap I fell into with my son. I was 20 years ago, a little bit too worried, and I was over cleaning. I feel a bit
Mm.
guilty because that possibly at the very beginning contributed to that. Just because the
Yeah.
skin barrier is it's so important, and it has probiotics on our skin barrier. So if we're always using soaps and washes and things and not allowing that to develop enough, then we're really opening it up for sensitivity in the skin.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
let's just talk about skin reactiveness in the environment and
Yep.
contributing factors.
And you touched on one of the main points here is if you're constantly washing that skin barrier, especially if you're not using environmentally friendly or skin friendly products, like you and I at Second Nature will be using, herbal based natural products without any nasties in it.
Mm.
But for the average person out there, they'll just, if they go getting their stuff from a supermarket, they're going to be, the kids are going to be, or the baby going to be exposed to a lot of toxic. Now, it's just
Even the ones that say
absolutely,
natural, that
yeah, yeah,
a lot of them
exactly. Yeah, just
still have
because it
the
says
soap.
natural doesn't,
Yeah,
that bit of marketing doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be right for you, or your child. And yeah, it's absolutely disgraceful, some of the products out there that are advertised for the use in children. And I really warn people out there that do your research here, or if you've got a naturopath or herbalist that you can see, ask them for recommendations, because it's really hard to navigate all that marketing and everything out there. And if you're just going down your standard shopping aisles, you're going to be a 99% chance you're going to be using something that could potentially be an irritant, and make things a hell of a lot worse. And one of the worst offenders for this sort of thing is the ones that chemists recommend for your skin that are full of chemicals,
Mm.
toxic chemicals, and they might provide minimal relief, but in some cases they just make things worse from the get-go.
Mm, mm.
And the amount of times I'm just sort of like gasping, like, you're using that. It's like, or the chemist put me onto this one, and then I'll go and look at the ingredients and go, oh, sodium, there's benzonates
Mm.
and all these.
If you can't
Um,
pronounce them on there, then
well,
probably
yeah,
best to
there's,
keep
there's
away from it.
it's just horrific. So I think that's important, and maintaining the skin barrier, or the skin microbiome, if you will, is a huge thing that we're getting more and more evidence to support, and having more natural creams and things to use for
Just
healing,
as,
like with
yeah,
calendula is a favorite.
yeah.
um, and then like you touched on exposures in the environment. Like we've talked a little bit about, whether it's pollens, grasses, allergens coming in from the allergen load, coming in from things like foods as well. There's also mold that can be a
Hmm.
problem,
Definitely.
and it's not a problem for everybody. But if you've got the genetics where it is a problem for you, you can be in real trouble. And if that's happening with the mother, and this is the annoying thing, it could be the mum's got an issue with mold,
Mm.
but and especially if the not even necessarily a DNA predisposition, but an altered immune system through pregnancy,
Hmm.
altered hormones and everything, may make the mother more vulnerable to a situation of mold
Which feeds
exposure.
onto the baby.
Exactly, and then
And the
everything goes right
mycotoxins as
through.
well.
Yeah, so there's some nasty mycotoxins out there that
Mm.
can trigger, and then now you're talking. Not only are we looking at the immune system being, I don't know if overwhelms the right word, but
Dysregulated.
dysregulated. Yeah, I think that's a better word. You're also thinking of this whole detox scenario too, because
Mm.
that's something we haven't touched on yet. And this is getting more naturopathic, is that the skin is an organ, and it's
Hmm.
often used as a detoxification process. And when we see a lot of skin cases, it's really critical to look at the detox pathways. What's going on
Hmm.
in the liver is what's going on in the gut with the whole elimination. Because if the skin's reacting to a lot of things, it could be because it's becoming an elimination organ,
Hmm.
basically, or it
We're putting more
is
load onto it.
more
Yeah.
load. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Just imagine there's a funnel and you've got your big open net and then there's a small tube, and our body's processing all the toxins every day. It doesn't matter if you're a child or an adult, but the baby is so sensitive and so small, so they're more sensitive to a lot of toxins. So if we put in their fragrances or chemicals in the environment, smoke or pollution, and then we put preservatives and we put sugar dysregulation, which feeds the candida inside the microbiome, and then the mycotoxins, and it's just overloading, and then that tips over. And then, just as Brad said, the skin's the biggest organ. It has to take more on. The kidneys and the liver is not doing, and well, it can't keep up, and then the skin takes on the load, and the skin's already so beautiful and sensitive. It's so fresh. It's trying to establish its own microbiome on the surface, and that's where the dysregulation happens. So we've touched on the microbiome and some food allergens. We've talked about the mother with breastfeeding, and then the inflammation coming through, and the proteins. We've talked about formulas. We talked about environmental things. Let's talk now about like external things. So you've done all these things, you've got the foundation right. Now, what external things? So we don't want to rely on the steroid creams. What could we do externally?
Right. It's as far as healing
Yeah,
the
like
eczema.
my favorite herbal cream in the clinic.
Yep.
I'll jump straight in.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
so I use with my patients a real foundation of it's a wax and oil homemade, and put a lot of herbs in there and put a bit of zinc. But Brad mentioned calendula. I love using calendula. Just a note that some babies can be sensitive. It's in a daisy family, and there is a note on some people can react to it. Same as chamomile as well. Absolutely love chamomile. Orally cooled down on a teaspoon. It's really good for the gut. It's a bacteriostatic, helps balance the bacteria. But the cream with calendula, I use St. John's wort. It's in some research about 15 years ago showed it actually more beneficial than calendula.
Mm.
What are your favorite herbs, Brad?
Yeah. I like licorice when I'm doing topical creams.
Mm,
Now, there's a caveat because I tend to like it because it can come in if someone's been dealing with topical steroid addiction, or hopefully, if we're talking about babies here, hopefully that's not the case for a baby,
yeah.
because
Well,
you'd
young,
hopefully that they're not on steroid cream for those high doses for long periods, but it can
yeah,
happen.
some toddlers can, yeah, from
Yeah,
day
yeah,
dot.
absolutely. And it can be because people try and stop. They might hear this podcast and be clued up on the steroid cream concerns and go, "I'm not going to go near that," or they want to stop it, and you can't go cold turkey with it, and that's the problem. You've got to taper off it,
Mm,
and licorice root can be really good for that for eczema
because it acts like a
sufferers.
steroid, a
Acts like a
plant
mild
steroid.
steroid.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, it's a very soothing demulcent as well. So it has a lot of other properties outside of a slightly steroidal property. So it can be really good for that. Things like green tea has come up a lot for topical creams for me, but berberine. I use a lot, whether it's from Oregon grape. Well, it's one of my favorite herbs for. I use it a lot for psoriasis, but
Mm-hmm.
it can be used for eczema as well. Nettle leaf as well,
Nettle leaf,
another one that can be applied
chickweed.
topically. Chickweed for that
Chickweed,
itch. Yeah,
yeah. But if you can get
absolutely.
it fresh, if you're in an area where you can pick it fresh, works so well.
Yeah,
Really
yep.
good for the itch.
Golden thread is something I've used a little bit, which is a higher amount of, if I want to go higher dose berberine.
Yeah, so the
Um,
creams are beautiful. Oatmeal, my favorite, works very well, and there's evidence in the description to back this up. Oatmeal, what I would do is put it in a stocking, wife's stocking, cut off the leg, put it in the stocking, tie a knot, and then put it in the bath and just wring it out. And it makes this beautiful milk, creamy milk. After the bath, the milk's all creamy, and then just I squeeze some more on and just dab it on, and then just leave it on. It's almost like a cream. Worked very well. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, that's the base of the a lot of the formulations in the chemist. They have oat, but it's oat. But is it really? Just try to get back to
Mm.
basics and keep things simplified. Just the oats. You don't need all the
Yep.
chemicals as well. Is there anything else that you feel we should add, Brad, with
Well, we
safety
haven't.
or?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we haven't really talked about leaky gut or gut health in general. Um, un- uh,
Only through
Unless
the
you,
reactions happening. Yeah, yeah. Let's talk
yeah.
about
So
that.
so yeah, when if the baby is very reactive,
Yes,
you got to ask the why question, and
yes,
what's the integrity of the gut like, and if they're a cesarean born, not breastfed baby, well, is there a lot of issues with bacteria imbalances,
yes.
and
Antibiotic use as well.
antibiotic use is very common for little ones, especially
Yes,
with the cesarean, or even antibiotic use with the cesarean, and then it's in the breast milk of the mother too.
yes.
So, and antibiotics which we know travel through the breast milk. So
Yes.
then our focus needs to be on like let's restore gut barrier function, because a good gut barrier will inevitably, well, it's essential for a good skin barrier. So if
Yes.
that gut barrier is not right, then yeah. So just a quick spiel on leaky gut, which is intestinal hyperpermeability is the correct term. But leaky gut, you're looking at the tight gap junctions failing, and that could be something like zonulin being released from reacting to something like gliadin in gluten, and then the casein in dairy. But it could be other things causing a gut barrier disruption. And then those tight junctions open too much, and more bigger proteins can go through, and even LPSs. So LPSs, for people that don't know, lipopolysaccharides from uh, I won't say, I don't like using the term bad bacteria, but let's call it opportunistic or pathogenic bacteria.
Yeah.
Now, if we've got a
Opportunistic is very
disruption,
common. Yeah.
yeah,
Sorry to
if we've
cut you
got a
off.
disruption, so we're looking at a disruption in the gut bacteria, or a dysbiosis, and then that can contribute to the leaky gut, or there could be other factors contributing to that. And then the opportunistic or pathogenic bacteria that might be there from this dysbiosis picture can produce LPSs, and these are pro-inflammatory molecules that then go through the gut barrier, in addition to any proteins that might cause an immune reaction once they go into the gut, through the gut barrier and into the bloodstream. And then this can spread all over the body, but
Mm-hmm.
it can present in the skin. So healing the gut is really essential, and noticing the stool of the baby, um, that can tell you a lot, and then making sure you do whatever you can to heal the gut of the baby, or
Mm.
even through the mother,
Yes.
healing the mother's
At the very basics,
microbiome
some
as well.
probiotics.
Yep,
There's some easy to get baby probiotics now, and you can just put it a little bit of breast milk or formula and just in a little paste, put it on
absolutely.
the nipple, or just put it on a little spoon, give it to the baby.
Yep.
And we're not talking also about the formulas. There's a lot of marketing around the formulas. I know there's some in the chemist and the shops. They say added probiotics. Talking more about a tailored therapeutic dose of a separate probiotic, and more
Hmm.
frequent as well. There's definitely formulas, and they say they have added probiotics. They have a minuscule amount. It's always
Yeah.
very basic, and it's a
You bet
marketing gimmick.
you'd be better off getting some straight lactobacillus rhamnosus GG or something, and which here in Australia it's very accessible, and
Yes,
in the chemists and
very easy to
whatnot.
get. Yep.
And that specific strain, and there's other strains that have been shown to be good for eczema, specifically for the young ones.
Yes. Excellent. And I have a couple of other videos related to the eczema as well, a little bit more on the gut, if you want to expand on watching those.